Hello, guys. How you doing?
Hi.
We've got
Fabulous.
Freeman with us today, who works for XL Esports. I wonder if you'd just like to tell us a little bit about what you do within XL, Freeman.
Yeah, definitely. I'll do a briefer one that I just mentioned before this started. But yeah, I work at XL Esports. I'm currently the talent manager. Started out as a content creator and then moved into Fortnite management, and then obviously currently is talent now, which incorporates Fortnite team, incorporates creators, ambassadors, I guess like spokespeople for the company. So yeah, that's what I do, and I've been there for a year now. And obviously, Mark, I've got to know you through Jacob, your son, as he's one of our players in the Fortnite team. So yeah, that's Freeman in a nutshell.
Oh, and since we've been having these kind of regular discussions, video discussions, we decided that actually, instead of people just staring at Thibaut and I nattering on, we thought we'd pull in some interesting and cool other people. And as soon as we said that, I thought, Freeman, he's one.
Freeman,
Him,
interesting and cool.
yes, you definitely qualify as both of those, Freeman. So the kind of sort of format which we think hopefully will work is we've got a topic in mind, or actually possibly two topics that kind of blend together, and we're gonna have a chat about that and kind of see where that goes.
So
Nice. So I think obviously we all have a keen interest in games and in gaming from a slightly different angle, and I think looking at it from your perspective. And looking at it from our perspective, I'd be interested to see where we think between the three of us sort of the future of gaming lies, or where it's sort of going, both on the, say, short term and maybe more on the long term, and seeing for someone who's really in the middle of it, in the heart of it, of gaming as an industry booming and growing, and us sort of exploring more on the fringes, maybe some other uses of it, and maybe some other applications of gaming in a broader sense in our lives and in our professional lives. I don't know, Freeman, if you want to give us a bit of an insight into where you think everything's going.
Yeah. So I guess like the natural progression at some point, because I think working at Excel, I've really been able to see like how like the business behind it, and how much work needs to go into building an esports team, and it will be the same as with football, with rugby, when they first started out building out their teams. There's a lot of work that goes into it. So I feel like if we maybe I'll start long term, because I'm much more aware of it, but I would say like VR and moving into that, because I remember I can't remember the film name, Ready Player One. I just picture us at some point where we have people running around like playing that esport, that digital sport. They're running around in this world shooting each other. I used to work in a VR shop a few years ago, and we had some games in there where it was like online, and we'd go ham at each other for an hour, come out absolutely sweating. But I was thinking, right, like, at some point, is this going to reach like an insane level? But maybe short term would be trying to transition fans over, convincing people that esports is a cool thing, and there's a future in it.
It's I was just talking to one of our other members of staff, who's actually a Kickstart person, who's been working us for a month, and I'd mentioned that you were coming on, and he's actually the person that started to edit these videos. But he was saying, it's really interesting, because I've got friends, and I might say, "Oh, do you want to come out on Saturday evening?" And they go, "Oh no, we're watching the League of Legends finals." So they won't go out because of the League of Legends finals on. And he was saying they seem to be as much into esports and League of Legends as I am with real football. So it does seem like because that hasn't been like that for many years. So it does seem like people are now starting to adopt these teams and become proper dedicated fans in the same way that they would have been for a football team. That seems like it's starting to become quite a big thing now.
Oh yeah, massively. And like I said earlier, I think one of the key things that we, I guess, need to do as our whole industry in esports is like, you know, create an environment where you can have like super fans, you can have people like you said with like your mates who will stay in on a Saturday and support their team. And it's the same here. Like I grew up in Pompey. There's like a huge football culture here. I think at some point it becomes part of someone's identity, right? They're a Pompey fan. They support Pompey. They don't like Southampton. They don't like the other team. That's them. And I think the faster, or at the point that we reach that with esports, and it is happening, but it's slowly happening. I think when you reach that point, you're really starting to create something, because as soon as people identify with you, there's so much you can do, because you know that you have diehard fans. You have people who will watch all of your games, will buy all of your merch, will be fully committed towards you. And I think with us at Excel, the faster we can do that, and that comes down to me picking the right talent. It comes down to marketing us properly to the audience. As soon as we do that, the better.
Oh, that's interesting, because that's tweaked a couple of things in my brain, because obviously there's a business advantage, there's a monetary advantage of you creating these super fans that will, whenever you release your next kind of product, they're all gonna buy it. That makes a lot of commercial and business sense to me. I wonder whether you could comment on what else you think those individuals could gain from that relationship with an esports team.
Yeah, so I think probably the main one that I've seen is like a sense of community. I feel like maybe that type of demographic definitely falls into like the maybe introverted like gamer will stay in. Maybe they're too young and they're not ready to go out and socialize and do all these things. But they get a sense of community without having that pressure of like in-person interactions. So we in our Discord channels, I'd say that we have maybe like 15 to like 20 like super fans. Like people will always be there and always watch our games. And instead of them being a polar opposite of going to a Pompey game and being with their friends and being in a loud environment, they get to hop into Discord. They get to talk to people that they know really well because they speak each week, and they get to be a part of a community. And I think gaming really brings out, and I guess esports as well, to be honest. So esports really brings it out for people, and it just makes the whole experience better.
I think it's interesting because, and for me, I'm going in a different direction than I thought I would be going. But so for me, League of Legends was kind of a gateway drug, let's say, to the esports world. And I remember a discussion with my sister, who's she used to be a really good football player and really well into football, and she couldn't understand how I could watch someone else play a video game. And I explained to her the parallel with, physical sports, if you will. And I remember it taking 2 or 3 conversations for her to actually grasp what it meant. And then it sort of clicked, and she was like, yeah, of course, you do something and you watch someone else who's exponentially better at that thing than you. And first of all, you enjoy that, but you also learn from it, etc. But for me, the what you just mentioned about the Discord channel and the sense of community, but in a different way than going to the pub and having a pint together, I think that's something that, at least for me, also came out in this pandemic, where, Mark and I and a couple of other guys, we would regularly play video games together, and I'm able to have relatively easily sort of a genuine human connection with someone over a video chat or while playing a game, just because, I don't know, I guess I'm used to it. I do it a lot. And so, I feel like the impact of social isolation and not meeting people in person has had a slower impact on me. Not to say it hasn't had an impact on me, but a slower impact on me, because I was still able to have these connections with people around a different activity that we were all enjoying and we were all used to practicing or playing together, if you will. The fact of coming to get together around a video game, whatever that was, with Mark, they're always, every week's a different video game pretty much. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but almost. And, that's something that we're now also putting in practice actively within IQM, where we're completely remote. And so we need to find these moments where we get to connect. And yes, we're bringing people together every now and then to meet face to face, but most of our interactions are going to be remote. And so gaming and connecting around gaming is actually one of the ways that we found to do that effectively.
Yeah, 100%. I found that in lockdown, not so much as like, I didn't realize how good it is to, me and my friends would play FIFA. We'd always do pro clubs, and you'd all hop into a game together. There'd be like 8 to 10 of you, and just hash it out for 2 or 3 hours each night and play. And I think people around me who weren't necessarily like into gaming, so like my girlfriend at the time, she would kind of see like, oh right, this is actually, especially for now, this is really good because you get everything you normally would, but without like the in-person interactions. But yeah, it's interesting that you guys have used that to have that as at your work as like the bonding experience, right? Because I feel like you're all working remotely, but then you still have the opportunity to share experiences and share fun experiences with each other, and that definitely like creates some bonds, right?
It does. And again, it's interesting because I know, Freeman, that you are a very good IRL football player, as well as a gamer, and Thibaut and I are both very active kind of physical people at times when we're not playing computer games. So I wouldn't necessarily say that the computer games is a complete substitute for everything else in your life. It for me, it's another tool, if you like. It's another tool for social interaction, which I think is interesting as an area, because there are some people that are, I don't know, maybe very very against computer games for a number of reasons. So that's one kind of perspective. But there's also people that are very, very, very absorbed in just gaming and just sitting in front of their PC, which I think is potentially problematic as well. So I think it's interesting that there are a number of different perspectives on gaming itself.
Yeah, and tools was a good word to use there, because I feel like I had it a lot. I used to work in a school before, and when I meet the parents and whatever, I'll talk about gaming, because that was what I was like doing like on the side, especially for like the last 6 months when I was doing the freelance content creation. And I feel they get scared by it because they see the worst like case scenario. So like, and you don't see that with like football or sports, because you only see it glamorized on TV, because you got all these football stars, you got all these people that are super fit, that are running around making lots of money. But then with gaming, you like I said, it's not got to that point yet where they're like superstars that are really like perceived as like cool people. Hasn't reached that point yet. So like I said, when I talk to these parents, I think of worst case scenario, they're thinking, right, gaming, but he's going to be on the computer all day. He's not going to be socializing with people in person. And I really just think it does just come down to moderation, right? If you're moderately dipping into these tools, COVID's come around, let's dip into the gaming tool. Let's get my social interaction over pro clubs or the games that I'm playing. Fantastic, but it doesn't work in the sense that, right, I could go out with my mates this week, but I'm going to choose to stay in and play by myself. I feel you need to be moderate with it. You need to pick the right times to use it. And, some weeks you want to be in your shell. You stay on the game. It makes you happy. It's fine. And some weeks you need to have human interaction. You need to see people in person. So I think you've got to pick and choose the right times.
And I think one of the one of the other projects that we're involved in and that we've started also together with Mark and some other people, is a game to teach kids how to read, or at least that's sort of the start to, within the long term, the objective of making access to education more available to kids who have least access to it. So that might be in developing countries, etc. But when you're talking about kids at a really young age, obviously that question of moderation and vulnerability, etc., becomes exponentially higher. But I think when we talk about sort of the future of gaming, I think sure there's a technological aspect of, you know, where are we going and how high fidelity can we get the graphics, and how immersive can we make the game in itself, and you know, where do we see the trends going in terms of types of games and those things. But there's also the sort of social acceptance and social awareness of what does it mean to play games, and beyond the downsides of the guy, you know, that's probably slightly overweight, slightly socially awkward, and probably has a vitamin D deficiency because he never goes outside. You know, that stereotype. Beyond that, to look at, well, what are potentially some of the benefits? Because I know a lot of my friends on the French-speaking side that have learned English just to be able to communicate with their teammates, in this case on League of Legends or other cases, you know, because they're just exposed to that language much more, and they have a practical motivation, you know, an actual motivation of, well, I want to be better at this game, so I'm going to improve this skill that I have, or learn this skill that I don't have, and, you know, leadership skills and team working skills and social skills that are involved in that. Basically what the thought that prompted that for me was, well, a lot of players are relatively young, right? And a fair few of them will prioritize their esports career over formal education, because they're just earning a boatload of money at the time that they're a player on an esports team. And so the question would have been, okay, well, what happens after that, or what skills do you develop that are transposable into another activity or career in life? Because I think there's a fair few skills that I've learned from gaming, right, or that gaming has helped me improve. But I think if we start seeing some esports players taking sort of the next step after either the game that they were playing is no longer in style, and so they're no longer a good enough player to earn a keep from just playing video games, or they just decided to move on, or whatever reason, to sort of see, well, actually there's a bunch of useful skills that you learn from playing video games, and a whole range of different skills from a whole range of different games, and see how that sort of transposes back to life. And Mark, we've had a few discussions about this in regard to your son, obviously, of, well, sure, but what comes after this potentially? You know, not tomorrow, but in 10 years, you know, what happens then? Where is he then?
So I think a cool one at the moment is so I know a guy called he's James Fraser Morrison. So he just started like an esports course for colleges, and that's been rolled out I think two years ago now. So we're on their second year, and that's been like a real testament to that. You know, all these guys have been like huge gamers for ages, and now they're able to like come into like a structured course. Especially college, they've had it in uni for a little while, but then it was hard to get onto those courses.
So that's the British Esports Association, BTEC, isn't it? Do you know what? Coincidentally, my other son, my 16-year-old, has just signed up for that. What day is it? We're Wednesday. He signed up for that yesterday. So perfect. There you go. There's a coincidence there.
Yeah, and I feel like they've almost given these kids now like a real chance to learn about, because the main things they need to learn about is like the industry. Like I feel like the skills that you have to be a marketer for a sports team, and the skills you need to be a marketer for an esports team are pretty linear. It's just two different industries, and one's way more developed than the other one. So yeah, giving them that platform, giving them the opportunity to work and get work experience in the industry as it's growing it's been super helpful. And I've been down to the main college where they're doing it and doing like an amazing job. And these kids really feel like they have a chance to like work in an industry where like 10 years ago you would have your parents would have said no. Like, don't do that. But, if there's a college course going alongside it, like, why not?
It almost feels more legit, doesn't it? It feels more like an actual option. Yeah.
It's education. And if Uther starts on that course, I might be potentially. I had a little chat with Freeman a couple of months ago, but I might be twisting Freeman's arm. Oh, come and talk on my son's in Brighton, because it's in Brighton as well. Come and talk on my son's esports course. That might be quite cool.
100%. But yeah, it's really hopeful, and it's nice to see, especially like for us, because I'm seeing how fast XL's growing, how fast like everyone else is growing, and then you can see everyone else kind of like getting on board now, right? Everyone's like getting on board. Thinking, right, there is a genuine future here, and there's an industry for people to work in. And I've spoken to a lot of people when I was leaving my work, because like esports, like what jobs can you do in there? Like I said, there's loads to do. You just need to wait for the actual industry to almost update itself and get to the point where there's loads of teams. There's the British Esports Association. There's Hitmarkers, like a really good one. They basically help people get jobs in esports. And I think like even like how you guys work with being remote, a lot of the work you do in esports doesn't really need you in person. My job's different because you're visiting players, or you're talking to people and showing them around the facility. But in general, it can be remote as well, which is cool.
I just wonder, it's partly linking in with another topic we were talking about, an area we were talking about with regards to the benefits of gaming, because I'm an autism mentor, one of the jobs that I do, and quite a lot of the young men that I've worked with autism play computer games, and I think that their social network would have been vastly smaller, and potentially some of these young men would have been in danger of social isolation, like Thibaut was talking about, if they didn't have games. And funny enough, something like Minecraft is really, really big for that, where you create a community and you have responsibilities on certain servers and you get together to do joint projects. So I know from my interaction with those young people that has had an amazing positive effect on them. And I was wondering, linked to that, whether you have any, knowing that those introverts and those maybe people that maybe would have been hidden away a bit more and aren't the people going to maybe so much going to the football matches and nightclubs and things like that, do you have any kind of initiatives, or are you looking into anything where you can maybe help that group even more to get into esports and create even more of a community to them, further than some Discord channels, if you like?
Yeah. So I feel like we definitely want to start getting it like directly involved in the communities. So we've recently expanded. From last time you saw Mark, actually, we're knocking through on the top floor to the other building. So we're expanding out. Yeah, we're expanding out. There's going to be like some sort of like a community area there. We recently hired about 4 or 5 months ago a community manager as well. So these people that maybe first step is that they're in these Discords and they're watching the games, they're coming part of the community, they've got their own XL merch, blah blah blah. Maybe the next step is that they come down to the XL office on like one of our big games, and they can come watch the game, be with the staff, maybe some of the players that are there as well, and start bridging that, because that would be a cool way to really get that introverted person, get them onto the Discord community. Nice first step. You're comfortable talking to these people. You've established yourself almost. and then it's coming down to an event that we're hosting because our League of Legends team is in playoffs and we really need to win this game. You guys can come down, and there's a community, I guess, like initiative there. So I think that one's really cool. And I guess just in general, like even like personally, like I will do things like this. I'll go to like I said, with the James Fraser Morrison with his esports course. I went to go talk on behalf of British esports. So I was gonna go do that. So I feel like a lot of us in the company are quite keen to like spread the word of XL, but also do good things in the community. Try and help these guys realize that there is a path into this industry, and help them as best as we can.
Well, I'd maybe this is another conversation we can have. I'd love to have a chat with regards to the kind of the learning disabilities and autism and inclusion in esports. That I've got some experience on that and got some contacts, and I think there could be some really cool things that XL could do in that area.
Yeah, I forgot as well. Sorry. So we do work with a charity a fair bit called Special Effects. So they really specialize in, I think to summarize, they make gaming more accessible to people like who maybe can only play with their feet or has only got one hand to play. They'll create like I guess like controllers and stuff like that makes it easier for them to play. So with the community cup that we ran, Mark, a few months ago, that was all the money donated went to them. So I'd definitely say we've started, but you can only really keep going, can't you? There's not a point when you think, right, we've helped 1,000 people, now that's it. You just keep that ball rolling.
And this links into there's a friend of mine that has MS, is going blind and is really struggling to kind of interact with things. And I was thinking, I can kind of go and visit him because he's an hour or so away from me, or maybe I can find some sort of game that he could still have some regular interaction with a group of people. So I was starting to look into those kind of that kind of accessibility for people who are blind and all those other stuff, which is again is a really interesting area that I think a lot of games aren't designed really with that in mind. So taking that into account again with regards to inclusivity, I think would be a really, really, really good thing to increase as well within esports.
Oh, 100%. And you have these people maybe at one point because they struggle to play the game that they really feel they can't, like get involved like with the community or supporting the team. But I think the more accessible you make it for everyone, the more people you're going to have on board supporting you. The more your core fan base grows, and that goes for everyone, right? That goes for every type of group that there is. So yeah, I'm passionate about that. I know XL are as well, and I would like to say most esports teams are as well. But I guess it happens with time. There's a lot that we need to catch up on and improve on.
No, and I think that is an area that obviously, that definitely needs to be developed more. And I think games are in a potentially a unique position in contrast to more outdoor and physical sports, because I think games are suited more for inclusivity. So I think there's a big opportunity for games to have a really positive impact on that.
I mean, there's when you talk about communities and online games, there's obviously always the risk of slightly toxic communities and those kind of things. So when you're talking about inclusivity, and especially with vulnerable people, that's a big risk. Someone who's mentally a little bit less stable, I wouldn't want them being in a ranked League of Legends game. That's not going to be good for anyone. I mean, depends, but especially if you're playing with pickups and not a pre-made team. So there is that element, but for sure, in terms of if it's used in a sort of controlled environment, if you will, or a safe environment, then it becomes very, very interesting.
I think go on, Mark. You can take the reign.
No, I was just going to say that I think sometimes that's down to how the game is designed and what extra support you have around that game as well, because if we're interacting with more and more people virtually, then in real life we have people that are able to have a positive impact on other people. But how do we have gaming mentors? How do we have other support systems online that can help reduce some of those kind of toxic games or toxic scenarios that Thibaut's talking about?
Yeah. I thought what would be an interesting one as well is that, so obviously from my time working in the school, we'd constantly have to deal with like safeguarding issues. And this would be primarily like online. It would be like on Instagram or on Facebook, or someone sent a tweet, someone said something they shouldn't have done. I think the more realistic these games get, I feel like the more issues we're going to have, and the more attention we're going to have to pay to safeguarding, especially for like a younger audience, because if we start getting up to like Ready Player One levels where you're there but you're not, but you pretty much could just be there. It's just going to be like the real thing, and then whatever's happening in those situations would need to be. We need to make sure, I guess, that we keep up with the progress that we make with gaming and how it goes forwards, because it's already difficult to do now. But if you've got all these people in the metaverse where there's not a limit on how many different areas there could be, how many different islands there are. It's going to be a difficult one to deal with.
I think a lot of that has to do with how intentional we are with the technology and the games that we develop. Are we thinking about the side effects that might have? Are we testing it properly and stuff? Because I think on two sides of the same coin, it can be a really good and safe environment in which you can practice and learn to deal with complicated social circumstances, conflict resolution, those kind of things. In a game setting, it's really good as long as it's controlled and it's well facilitated. But then the flip side of that is you can have really vicious conflicts that escalate really quickly if it's not controlled, and people being really petty, and because there's this screen between you and I, or this VR headset between you and I, I'm going to do stuff that I would never do if we were face to face. And I think you're absolutely right. If we're going into stuff that becomes more immersive, more multi-sense oriented, if we get haptic suits and stuff like that, where I can actually get feedback from the world that I'm evolving in, then that becomes a bigger risk, but also potentially a bigger opportunity. And if we're talking about the metaverse and the guy behind that, I'm not sure about that, but
I always just go straight to Ready Player One, because I think how insane that is, and I really don't think it's like it's far away, but I don't think it's that far away. When we start, when you watch back, you look at that film, it's like, this is we're pretty much there. As soon as we I don't know what the technology is, but making it small enough where you don't have like a huge headset on or whatever, or you can just tap in. I don't know if you guys have watched Black Mirror before, but they've done they've done a few episodes like that where they just stick something on and then they zoom back and then they're into the metaverse. So it'll always be a challenge, right? I think innovation causes challenges, of course.
I think that technology is theoretically there and is getting smaller and smaller, but the price point isn't viable for the normal consumer yet. But that augmented reality and mixed reality type stuff is shrinking fast in its size, which will mean that there will be many more applications for it when the cost comes down.
Yeah, I guess it'll be. I don't know if you guys saw what did Facebook rebrand to? Is it Meta?
Yeah,
right.
Meta, yeah.
Yeah, and I think they showcase as well, because it'll probably be quite more in line with what you guys are doing at the moment with your gaming nights and stuff. People being in the metaverse and gaming and working as well, socializing. I thought that's probably something that you guys would dip into at some point when it's ready.
It's something. There's a there's a piece of software called Topia, for example, which is a very, very, very simple version of that, where you're just moving around a character, but you're moving around a character in a basic graphical environment, and then when you get near to someone, their video and audio is activated, and you're able to chat to them, and you've got various things that you can add to the world, so people can be in an office and you can see everybody's little people walking around. So if you want to go to another office, you can go and chat to someone. So it creates a virtual environment, which is very simplistic compared to a VR environment, but it's still serving the same sort of function. So that's definitely an interesting area.
Yeah, and think I'm excited for it. Like, I'm all for the metaverse and everything that comes with it, because it's cool. But yeah, you also make sure that it's safe and it's progressive. I think the faster we go, maybe the harder it's going to be to monitor everything.
But I think the more we take it seriously and its application seriously, the more deliberate we can be about the direction it goes in. You know, as long as people keep discarding it as, oh no, it's just, you know, stupid distraction, then we're not actually going to have an intention of where it goes, and it's just going to be one or two jokers in a corner that determine where we end up.
These technologies are going to change the world, undoubtedly. So yeah, we definitely need to take it seriously.